Hey guys, my name is Kimberly and this is Winnie, and today I'm going to be sharing her birth story. So I just want to start by saying that I wish I had a labor and delivery vlog for all three of my daughters. It is what it is. Unfortunately, I don't have any videos from my first birth and very limited videos from my second. But I have some pictures and videos from her labor and delivery that I will be able to put in throughout this video. But I just want to start by saying that obviously if I could have all of them have a video about their birth story, I would, but just, I never thought I would be sharing this online, so I definitely don't have everything that I could to make those types of videos. But I specifically wanted to share Winnie's birth story today because Winnie has Down syndrome, and when I was 12 weeks pregnant, I got the positive NIPT test results stating that she had a 74% chance of having Down syndrome. And so when I got those test results, I joined a Facebook group for pregnancy support. And it was an amazing group full of amazing women. Everyone was just, women supporting women and lifting each other up during this difficult time in our lives, this time of so much unknown. And it was an amazing group. But one thing that the group didn't help with is it gave me a lot of anxiety around actually giving birth, because the group, people would share in the group every time they had like their birth announcement. And so through the group I saw a lot of women who either went into preterm labor or had inductions or scheduled C-sections or emergency C-sections, and all of those things were really scary to me. Before having Winnie, I had two uncomplicated full-term vaginal deliveries in the hospital without epidurals, and so that was what I was hoping to experience with her. And being in that group, I started to see a lot of stories that kind of made me feel like that wasn't going to be an option. So I want to share her birth story today because it ended up being very anticlimactic and uneventful, and while that doesn't make for a good story, that is exactly what I would have wanted to hear when I was preparing to give birth to her versus all the stories I ended up seeing in that group. My whole pregnancy went really good. I was seeing my midwife just like you would in any pregnancy, and then I was seeing an MFM once a month, and nothing suspicious ever came up. Nothing ever made me have to go in for more frequent testing or more visits or anything like that. So everything went pretty normal, and honestly, if I didn't have the NIPT, they probably would not have suspected that she had Down syndrome. She did have an absent nasal bone on the ultrasounds, but they were looking for markers of Down syndrome because of the NIPT, so I don't know if they would have caught that otherwise. But pregnancy went really well, and I went about all my appointments as usual. And so on a Wednesday, I went for my 38-week checkup. I was 38 weeks and 4 days on that Wednesday. And I went, I met a new midwife that I had never met before. She was newer to the practice, so she wasn't there for my previous two births. So it was my first appointment meeting her. They wanted to make sure that I met every midwife in the practice before giving birth. So I met her. She was super nice. She offered a cervical check, and I decided to have one because I had been experiencing contractions and I wanted to know if they were actually causing cervical changes or if it was just completely like false labor. And so she did a cervical check. I was 2 centimeters dilated, and I want to say 50% effaced. It may have been even more, definitely not less, but things were definitely starting to happen. And so that was a Wednesday. And then the following day, it was Thursday, and my husband was off work, and we decided to start the day by getting some final bump pictures. I definitely didn't get as many pictures during the pregnancy as I did with my other two. Probably a combination of the fact that I had two toddlers and it wasn't as easy to just go take pictures whenever we felt like it, but also because the pregnancy was not as exciting. I definitely wasn't, celebrating it as much, and I wasn't going out of my way to say, oh, let's make sure we get pictures of the belly here and there and whatever. So I woke up that morning and I'm like, hey, let's get some pictures. I feel like she's gonna be here soon. Let's just make sure that we get some. So we went out back and we got some pictures of me with my other girls, and it was a really sweet memory. And the pictures turned out really good, and I actually posted them on my Instagram when I wasn't officially in labor yet and didn't realize that I was going to have a baby shortly after. But so I've always heard what gets the baby in gets the baby out, so we decided to do what we could there to put in the effort to try to get things started, and I am pretty sure that's what got things started. So shortly later that day, I lost my mucus plug, and I was like, I think things might be happening today. We decided to go get Starbucks, and then we walked on the beach, and I was already having contractions at this point, and I was already having contractions before this day as well. That was why I was open to having the cervical check. So I wasn't sure what was contractions actually starting to get more intense or get more frequent. They pretty much were staying 5 to 7 minutes apart that whole day, and they just, slowly grew in intensity to where when I was at the beach, I wasn't uncomfortable, and I don't know if I definitely was like, okay, this is 100% labor, but, obviously I had an idea. So we went to the beach, and then we decided to then go to a sushi buffet, which was so fun. The contractions were definitely picking up in intensity at that point, and I remember Snapchatting a few friends, and I'm like, my contractions aren't going away, is this labor? And I'm just eating sushi. And yeah, that was also a fun memory. I definitely won't forget that. We left there and we decided to go to Target, and at this point the contractions are getting bad enough that they were kind of stopping me in my tracks and I had to breathe through them. So I remember a Target employee was like, do you need a chair? Are you okay? And I just brushed it off and I was like, yeah, I'm fine, end of pregnancy pains, no big deal. Even though I was at this point pretty sure I was in labor. We run into Target, I'm thinking, we gotta make sure we have food for the kids for when we go to the hospital tonight, and then I ended up leaving there with no food because I couldn't think straight to grab what we actually needed to grab, and we ended up leaving with a clearance toy instead for the kids, no food. But yeah, so we went home, and it's probably around 6 p.m. at this point, and I'm like, okay, I'm almost sure this is actually labor. And I just wasn't ready to give birth. I was kind of caught off guard that I was in my 38th week. So I'm like, maybe it's gonna go away. Maybe this still is false labor. And it's 6 p.m. and I call my dad. I'm like, listen, this is what's going on, and I don't know what's gonna happen, but if you get a call later, I might have to go to the hospital tonight. So I'm just warning you in case you need to watch the kids. And so I don't remember what we did for the next few hours, but I know we went about our night, and we finally tried to go to bed around 11, and I could not sleep. I was sleeping and waking up to every contraction, and so I was waking up every 5 to 7 minutes, and I'm like, oh, it's not going away, this is it, we really have to go to the hospital. And so I finally called my dad. I'm like, okay, I'm sorry, but it's happening. He had just went to sleep, he had just laid down when I called him, and I'm like, okay, it's happening, you need to come over here. We drove to the hospital. It was after midnight by the time we were actually driving there, and for whatever reason there was so much traffic on the highway that we actually had to exit way before our hospital exit and take a different route to get there, which is just crazy at midnight. I guess the highway was under construction or something, but it was kind of inconvenient. But we get there, we get to the hospital, and the maternity parking lot doesn't exist anymore because it was under construction. So there was nowhere to park. We go to the valet, there's no one at valet. We waited a few minutes and finally some guy appears. We get into the hospital and we were in triage, and the nurse was telling us that there was no AC. So when she told us that, I'm thinking like, there's no AC in triage. There was no power in the entire hospital, and they were running on generators, and so AC was not important enough to make the list of what needed to be on the generators. So there was no AC in the entire hospital. There was not AC when I gave birth. Yeah, that's just a fun little detail. But we get to triage. I tell them what's happening. I'm like, maybe it's false labor. Maybe you'll send me home, but I know I need to check. She puts everything in the computer. She brings someone over. They check me, and they're like, oh, you're 6 centimeters. You're not going home. And I'm just like, oh, like, man, I was kind of hoping I was going to get to go home tonight. I was so nervous to meet her, and I was just starting to enjoy, like, being pregnant. I'm just like, I don't want to do the newborn phase yet. Like, I'm scared to meet her and, like, for our life to change. So they tell me, you're 6 centimeters, you're not going home, we're going to admit you. We called your midwife. She's looking for a babysitter for her kid, and she'll be here when she can be here. And so they're like, let's bring you to the delivery room. Do you want to walk or do you want a wheelchair? And I'm like, I can walk, no big deal. Like, why would I need a wheelchair? I stand up and my water breaks, which has never happened to me before. With my first two, it was, my water was manually broken with like a little stick. So they told me I was not allowed to walk. I had to take the wheelchair. And so they brought me over, which when it broke, I'm like, well, listen, like, things get really intense after my water breaks. We got to get this midwife here right now. So at this point, I want to say it was probably around 2 a.m.-ish, maybe. They get me into my delivery room. I'm chilling. I'm just sitting in the bed. The midwife finally gets there, and she's like, okay, what's happening? And I'm like, I'm fine. I'm just chilling. And so she's like, okay, well, if you want to get things going, like, why don't you move around, get on the ball, something. And I was like, no, I'm good. I want to just chill. Like, I'm not ready to give birth. And she's like, you're just prolonging the inevitable. Like, when you're ready to get things going, just let me know. So maybe another 10 minutes later, I get on the ball, and I do that for about 10 minutes. And I think there's a video of me on the ball. So if there is, I'll insert that here. But I'm on the ball, and I'm like, still chilling. My contractions were still about every 5 minutes. So she comes in, she looks at the monitor, and she's like, listen, you're having a big contraction and then a little one and then a 5-minute break. A big one, a little one, a 5-minute break. And she's like, that pattern is showing that she's not in the optimal position to birth. Like, I guess she hadn't descended into the birth canal. And so she's like, you gotta do something else. The ball's not working. She's like, you gotta get on the toilet. And I'm like, okay. She's like, you gotta get on the toilet backwards. So I'm on the toilet. There's just like a pipe coming out of the wall. There's nowhere to rest. It was uncomfortable to sit on. And I had a pillow like leaning against the pole. And between contractions, I was falling asleep, sitting up on the toilet backwards because I was so exhausted. So at this point, it's after 4 a.m. I am sitting on the toilet, and I feel her drop. And it was this moment like, oh no, I'm gonna give birth right here, right now. Like, she's flying out. So I run from the bathroom to the bed, and I'm like, what time is it? And it's 4:40 a.m. because I wanted to know, like, I needed to know how long I was gonna be pushing for. And so I push this baby out as hard and fast as I can. I just did not want to be in this terribly uncomfortable position, which with my first two, I was able to have laughing gas for just pretty much like is it called transition? What is it called? I had laughing gas for like the time between 8 to 10 centimeters, because with both of them before Winnie, I had a pretty similar situation where I had my water broke around 8 centimeters. Things got really intense. Eventually got to 10 and pushed the baby out. So during that 8 to 10 moment, I had laughing gas. This time there was no time for laughing gas. So this is the first time I did it 100% pain med free. So yeah, I was ready to know like how long I was in this just terrible pain. So I ended up pushing her out in, I think, 2 or 3 contractions, and it was 3 minutes. And my husband has like the second half of her coming out on video, because by the time he got his phone out, she was already halfway out. But it is cool that he does have that on video. So he has the second half of her coming out, and then them laying her on me and me meeting her. So if I'm able to make that appropriate enough, I will try to insert that video too. But yeah, so she came out and I met her, and like I said, we only had the NIPT, so it was not official. There was no official diagnosis for Down syndrome, so they put her on me, and I looked down. The umbilical cord was too short, so they couldn't lay her on my chest. They laid her like right above, like right on my uterus, just really low on my belly. And so I looked down and I saw her little flopped over ears, and I knew at that moment that she did have Down syndrome. But it's crazy, because that moment that I was so scared of the entire pregnancy, like it was finally time, it was here, and I looked at her and I didn't even care. I just loved her. I was thankful to be done giving birth. I was thankful that she made it here complication free, avoided an emergency C-section, you know, natural labor, spontaneous labor, everything that I could have asked for. It was this, like, as similar to my other 2 births as I could have asked for. And yeah, I mean, she got here, and I didn't care. I just loved her so much. When I was pregnant, towards the end of my pregnancy, I randomly developed this fear of bleeding out, and I was super scared that I was going to hemorrhage during birth. And so shortly after they put her on me, they said that I was losing a lot of blood, and I was like, great, my fear is coming true. I remember thinking, like, this is it. I am going to die. I'm happy that I met her and that she made it here safely, and like I might die right now. I was so scared because it was like, great, my fear was valid. I knew something, you know, I knew that something was wrong and it was gonna happen. They ended up shoving 4 pills up my butt to stop the bleeding. I don't know why that is how it has to be done, but that was what they said they needed to do. They also kept my IV in my arm and said that if the pills didn't work, they were going to give me something in my IV. And so that was obviously a scary moment, but other than that, like, everything was so anticlimactic, uneventful. She was born, good weight, no health issues. She didn't need any NICU time. We were there for like maybe 36 hours, and that was just because she was born in the middle of the night, so they made us stay like the whole next night, because the policy is just 24 hours, but obviously we weren't going to leave at 4 a.m. the following morning. So I think they left at like 12. So yeah, it wasn't even 36 hours. It was like, I don't know, I can't do the math right now, but not that long. And so yeah, I feel like that was pretty good. And then she passed her car seat test on the first attempt to make sure that she had maintained a good oxygen level in the position in the car seat, and that went well. And I mean, just it went as good as it can go. So I just wanted to share the story, because when I was pregnant, I was so scared that the birth was gonna go so badly or so different because of her diagnosis, but it literally went just like my other 2 did. I mean, as similar as it could have been for all aspects of the whole labor and delivery process. So I just wanted to share that for any scared moms that, you know, not all of the stories are scary. I'm here with my boring story. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you stick around to watch Winnie on her journey. What do you think, Winnie? What do you think? You want him to stick around? All right, say bye.